What makes a good look? A great accessory. In part 1 of our shoulder bag series, we learned how to pattern make using PDF sewing patterns. Now in part 2, let's learn how to lay out, pin, and cut those patterns. First things first, depending on the content of your fabric, you may need to iron it. As mentioned in part 1, I'll be using a cotton fabric with an original African print that I created. I don't really need all of my fabric, so I'll need to cut away the specific yardage that's required to cut out my shoulder bag pattern. First, you want to find the selvage of your yardage, which is the bound finished edge of your fabric. Then you simply use your fabric scissors and snip into the selvage, then rip the required yardage away from the rest of the fabric. Make sure your iron is on a proper setting. You don't want to burn your fabric. For mine, I'm going to use a cotton setting and use a little bit of steam. You're really going to be tempted to skip this step. Don't do it. Ironing your fabric before you cut it is going to yield you better results and a more professional looking and beautiful end product. My fabric is a little stiff from the dyeing process, so I'm using the steam to soften it up and make it more pliable. Make sure the selvage of your fabric is ironed out nice and flat. Now we're going to repeat the same ironing process for our lining. I've chosen a 100% silk Dupioni fabric. I really love the color, but I also like the fact that it has the same characteristics as my outer shell fabric, which is 100% cotton. Let's now lay out our fabric. Make sure you're working on a clean, flat surface. We always want to double check our patterns just to be sure they're properly labeled and have the correct seam allowance. As per our instructions that we discussed in part 1 of our shoulder bag series, you'll need pattern pieces A, B, and C. Let's find the selvage on our fabric. This is probably one of the most important parts of laying out your fabric, so we can't get this part wrong. Once I've located my selvage edges, I want to fold my fabric vertically or horizontally, whichever way accommodates all your pattern pieces. Just be absolutely certain that your selvage edges are aligned together. Smooth out your fabric, but keep your selvages together. Always start with your largest pattern piece. Then line up the straight edge of pattern piece A with the fold of the fabric. Then begin to pin your pattern along the fold. Be sure that your pins are running crosswise or perpendicular to the folded edge of the fabric. For beginners, I highly recommend using a magnetic pin wand or pin cushion. If you spill the pins all over the floor, it makes the process of cleaning them up so much easier. Now pin along the curved edge of your pattern. Once again, be sure that your pins are running crosswise or perpendicular to your seam. Repeat the same pinning process with pattern pieces B and C. Now carefully rough cut your pieces away from each other. Now don't forget, we're using our fabric scissors, and if you need more help on understanding what are the proper supplies for a beginner sewer, we've got lessons that cover that too. Rough cutting each piece away from each other allows you to have more control and more accuracy while you're cutting each piece individually. And take your time, we're focused on accuracy and quality, not speed. Now we need to carefully cut each individual piece. First, on piece A, we want to snip our notches. Just be sure it's a tiny triangle or a small slit. Stay within your seam allowance. Don't go anywhere near your seam line. Now here's a professional tip that was not in the instructions. Cut a very small triangular notch on both ends of the fold. Now let's move on to piece B. Make small slit notches at the end of each dart leg. And again, small triangular notches on both ends of the fold of piece B. Piece C is a lot simpler because there is no seam allowance, but we'll still need those small triangular notches on both ends of the fold of piece C. All of our notches are done. Now it's time to transfer the markings from our dart onto the wrong sides of our fabric. You'll need 3 simple supplies: transfer paper, a tracing wheel, and a see-through ruler. All are included in our lessons on basic sewing supplies for beginners. First, remove any pins that are around the dart or on the dart. Now place your transfer paper between your pattern and the wrong side of your fabric. Be sure the colored side is facing down towards the fabric. Align your ruler to the dart legs, then transfer the markings with the tracing wheel. Be sure to transfer your dart markings on both sides. You may have to press down hard with your tracing wheel so that the color comes through on your fabric. As long as you can see what you transferred, you're good. Now it's really important to reinforce those lines with either a transfer pencil or regular pencil. Just be sure it's something that's removable or washable. Be certain that all of your markings are on the wrong side of your fabric. And when it's really hard to tell what is the right side or wrong side of the fabric, just go with your aesthetic or what you like and pick a side. All of our markings are transferred and all of our notches are clipped. We can now remove all of our pins. Now notice, when you cut your patterns on the fold, they are a mirror image of your half pattern that you drafted, laid out, pinned, and cut out. Now use the same process that you use for your fabric for your lining. I can absolutely assure you as a professional, the process that you're learning can be used to make dresses, shirts, skirts, and of course, accessories. This process is not just for making a shoulder bag. It's for anything that requires you to make a pattern, lay it out, pin it, cut it, and eventually put it together. Now let's take a look at a really important part of creating accessories. All handbags require some form of structure. In order to create that structure, we'll need a double-sided interfacing. Now the instructions calls for Vlizofix, which is also known as Bondaweb. It's a double-sided iron-on adhesive web that comes on paper backing. So there's so many other great brands of interfacing, so you don't necessarily have to purchase the Vlizofix. Just be sure that whatever interfacing you purchase has the double-sided iron-on adhesive. And here's another tip. Make sure that your interfacing is not too lightweight or flimsy. You want your bag to have structure. You first want to align the sewing pattern on the folds of your interfacing. Then carefully smooth and tape around the curved part of your pattern. Follow the same process for sewing patterns A, B, and C. And that's it. We finished laying out, pinning, and taping, and cutting out our outer fabric, lining fabric, and interfacing. Join us for part 3. Let's put this bag together. And don't forget, we're now part of the Hillman Talk University community.